Hour and a half from north of Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
Quiet little island. It's called Oka. I call it a quiet little drinking village with a fishing problem.
That's great.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great place.
It is very
Yeah.
quiet. Until the book came out, nobody knew me. I didn't have to shave, Now they know me. I got to move.
Yeah. New place now.
Yeah, I know. Go to Myrtle Beach where there's so many people, nobody knows me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about when you first met Dennis and he was a kid? Just set up. It would be great if you helped me tell the story that he started working for you as a kid and he was just and maybe describe the show and what it was like and
Okay.
maybe what he did. He was a PA, I think.
Yeah, PA.
But maybe, and then there's maybe what was unique about him and what you remember about him then. Because
Okay.
this is going to be kind of like his past, a good chunk of his teen years before he went,
Okay. Before he went crazy.
Yeah. Exactly. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. Well,
Yeah, go for it.
actually, when I started in television, I was a juvenile radio actor back in Ohio, and I played all the little boys on the radio. But my voice changed when I was 14, and coincidentally, 2 TV stations opened in my hometown, and I went with them with an idea of doing a Saturday night rock and roll show, pop music show. It was like the hit parade. Every Saturday night for 4 years, we did, the McGuire sisters, the Four, Lads, Teresa Brewer, Eddie Fisher, Perry Como, and all of a sudden I'm doing Elvis Presley, the Everly Brothers, Fats Domino. And before I knew it, I was doing a rock and roll show. So not only was I responding to it as a teenager, but I was a DJ on the air marketing it to everybody. So I related when I started on Channel 11 in 1963, and that's where I first met Dennis Anderson. And there was something about, he was 15 when he came to our show and would hover in the background. And I was 15 when I started. So I could relate to Dennis in that way because I could see his enthusiasm and he was in just total awe of everything. And he was like Chuck McCann's sidekick. He was a big fan of Chuck, who was a comic genius, and he was my sidekick on the show. So eventually, because Chuck was involved in the early shows, Dennis would be there hovering in the background. And so instead of hovering, we started giving him jobs, like, run out and get some Kentucky Fried Chicken for, stuff. And he'd come back with boxes of Kentucky Fried Chicken. The funny thing is, about the time I went on WPIX, the show evolved from being a teenage show into becoming more of an adult variety show, because previously I always had high school kids dancing in my audience, and it was a typical show, but we started to add comedy to the show. We did blackouts and skits like Laugh In with all our guest stars. We always had comics on our show. Nobody did a rock and roll show with Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Fannie Flagg and all those young kids. So we were really doing an adult show, but in order to keep my core audience, which was the teenagers, Dennis kept me grounded as far as teenagers. When he'd perk up hearing a song, I'd know, that's the one we got to keep playing. So Dennis became, way in the back of my mind, sort of my meter. Even though we had adults now watching the show, we still had to appeal to the kids who were hearing the music for the first time. If you weren't born after 1960, you don't know what life was like without rock and roll. You just suddenly, there it was. But when I started, there was no rock and roll. And so I was there from the very beginning. And it was just always Dennis reminded me of me. And because of his passion for the music and passion for working on the show, he was sort of my little barometer as to what I should play and how far I should go with the record. I dearly loved him because he was so enthusiastic. Would do anything. Run, go, get. We had a production assistant on our show. She had the lowest level job in the world. Her job was to book our audiences every week and make sure we had the fried chicken or Nathan hot dogs or something. Her name was Marcia Murphy. She was a mousy little girl with one crossed eye. She was terrified, And one time, actually, she forgot to order the Chicken Delight, and she thought she was going to lose her job. But anyway, she and Dennis became friends, and I had to leave on some family business, and Neil Diamond I asked to come in and host the show for me. And while he was there, Neil hooked up with Marcia Murphy, this little girl with the crossed eye. And eventually they started a romance. It was very hush-hush because he was married at the time and had 2 kids. So we all kept it very quiet, and she would maneuver with her roommates. And it was our little secret. Well, eventually, Neil got a divorce, married Marcia Murphy, and 25 years later, and 2 children later, after 25 years, they got a divorce. And Marcia Murphy got the biggest alimony settlement in the history of music. She got $150 million cash settlement, plus the mansion in Beverly Hills, the house in Aspen, the cottage out in Malibu. And Neil Diamond said she was worth every penny of it and wrote the check. So those are the good memories, and they always associated with Dennis. I mean, Dennis goes back to the early 1960s, before the British invasion, before the advent of American boy bands. I mean, he was there, you know, at the Revolution, the most important time. Nothing, there's a dividing line. Everything before the Beatles and the British invasion, everything after. I mean, after the whole world changed, the culture, the costumes, the mores, the drug culture, everything happened at that pivotal moment when the Beatles arrived. And so he was there from the beginning, and he never stopped. And I'm telling you right now, if you see him, tell him to stop it already. I mean, how long can you keep being a fan like that? I love Dennis very much, and I'm happy to do this for him, because he's a really swell guy. And if Lois watched my show, this is for her too.
The internet actually hooked you guys back up together, huh?
Yeah, they found me on the internet. Everybody I mean, it's just amazing. The people that I haven't talked to for years find me on the internet. I got a call last night at 9:30. I never answer the phone after 8. That's my private time, me and Turner Classic Movies. But the phone rang at 9:30, and I thought, well, maybe it's an emergency about the event here today and the TV radio day out in Long Island. And I thought, I better answer it. And he says, Clay, it's Jay Siegel from the Tokens. Oh, Jay, how are you? He says, listen, I just got to tell you, I just finished your book. It moved me so much. I just had to call you and tell you how much I loved it. He said, I knew everybody in the book. You brought back so many memories, and I just had to tell you how much I loved the book. And do you know what that means to me? I mean, it makes everything worthwhile. It's just, Jay, I'm going to have the best night's sleep I've had in years. That is so sweet. And he said, not only that, I'm starting tomorrow morning to read it from the beginning all over again.
That's great.
That's sweet. So
awesome.
Good things happen, even to us old folks. I actually said on stage when I was doing the show in Florida, it occurred to me, well, I told you this, that we're the only generation that still supports our own music. What happened to all the folkies? There's no hootenannies. That's gone.
Yeah.
What about the disco people? There's no disco shows. They're called dance clubs now. I mean, we're the only generation that still supports our own music. Yeah, and it keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah.
So good for us.
Music wants to evolve, and you're not letting it.
Well,
which is a good
You
thing.
want to keep the rock and roll.
listen, you evolve. Leave me alone with
That's
my
what
Montevani records.
That's what my grandmother said to me.